Intelligence Committee holding its first public hearing on Russian interference in America's presidential election. With the House's committee investigation stalled, the Senate's GOP chair and Intel's top Democrat say nothing is off limits as they vow to steer clear of politics. This is Outnumbered. I'm Sandra Smith. Here today, Harris Faulkner, Meghan McCain, and a couch first-timer Republican strategist and former spokesperson for President George W. Bush, Mercedes Schlapp. Welcome. Good to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be out of the swamp.
All right. Much more on that. And of course, today's #OneLuckyGuy, the co-host of The Five and host of Cashin' In, Eric Bolling. And by the way, Eric's new book, The Swamp, Washington's murky pool of corruption and cronyism and how Trump can drain it, goes on sale in June. Order yours now. Eric, congrats and welcome back. Always good to have you, but sir, you need to be reminded that you are outnumbered.
I am outnumbered, but what a great day. There's so much going on, so many stories. I'm thrilled to be here.
All right, let's get right to it. Today's big hearing on Russian meddling, saying they will go wherever the intelligence leads us. Senate Intel Chair Richard Burr over time. Among them, President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who serves as a White House senior advisor, former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, and possibly former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Meantime, Senator Warner giving a preview of how far Russia's interference went.
If you look, just for example, if you Googled election hacking during the period leading up to the election and immediate afterwards, you wouldn't get Fox or ABC or New York Times. Or what you get is 4 out of the first 5 news stories that popped up were Russian propaganda.
And while both Chairman Burr and Vice Chair Warner pledged to leave politics out of it, a reporter yesterday pressed Burr on whether he can lead a fair and impartial investigation, given his ties to the Trump campaign.
Having served as an advisor on the Trump campaign, can you say hand over heart that you can oversee an impartial and serious investigation?
Absolutely.
Into the ties between the campaign
I'll do something I've never done. I'll admit that I voted for him. But I've got a job in the United States Senate, and I take that job extremely seriously.
I have confidence in Richard Burr that we, together with the members of our committee, are going to get to the bottom of this. And that's, if you get nothing else from today, take that statement to the bank.
Of course, as the Republican and the Democrat overseeing this committee, do you think that the Senate committee is going to have more luck than the House committee? Eric Bolling.
Well, I think they may in that they get to start fresh. So they see some of the mistakes that were made by the House committee. And again, there are 3 investigations going on simultaneously right now. You have the House committee that we talked about with Devin Nunes. You have this one with Burr and Warner. And then you have the FBI investigation that's still ongoing. Here's the big question, though. There are a couple of names out there that are floating. That will the Senate committee call these names to testify? I'm going to throw a name at you. This is circulating right now. It's Evelyn Farkas. Evelyn Farkas was a deputy, let me get this right, the assistant deputy secretary of state. So it's like 3 or 4 levels down at Defense and at State Department. Now, why Ellen Farkas has said on air that she knew that the Obama administration was gathering information on the Trump transition team. Why would she know that? She was not in the government at the time when she said this, and she recommended to the Obama administration from outside of government saying, hey, take that information and hide it because when Trump's in office, he may want to get rid of it. There's a lot of problems with that. Number one, if it's an FBI investigation, it should stay in the FBI. If it's Intel, it should stay in Intel. It's scary that this many people had access to what was being investigated by the FBI.
Mercedes is nodding her head in agreement.
Can I throw one more name at you? Christopher Steele. I know he's a foreigner, but you have to at least call him, try and get him to testify. He's the one with that dossier that was put together. Who paid him to do it?
Well, and there's big questions on the unmasking this information of American citizens being out there. So, for example, there is that false information out there, for example, the House Intelligence Committee, that they're not, that they're stalled, that they're paralyzed. Well, actually, I spoke to some of the committee folks, and they basically said, we're moving forward, we're negotiating on a witness list, we recognize that this has to be a very important investigation, we don't want this to be stalled, but there's been so much political theater around it that it's become problematic.
And when you talk about the politics of it, I want to get to this tweet by Ari Fleischer and go to you on this, Meghan, because he acknowledges the fact that we just heard the reporter ask Senator Burr, the Republican leading this committee, if he can do his job since he was for Trump. But no one conveniently asked Senator Warner, the Democrat, if he can do his since he was against Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good point, obviously, by Ari Fleischer. I've known Senator Burr a long time. He's completely capable of running this and I think doing a very clean investigation. The problem we have here right now is Eric had to just go through this again for our audience to sort of explain what's going on and who we should go to. As Mercedes just said, this is completely and utterly politicized on both sides to the point that I have very little faith we're actually going to find any new information out in the future. And I just think, unfortunately, the prism for which you see Donald Trump is how you see this specific issue. And it's really a tragedy because it really could be an extremely egregious scandal on the part of President Obama if he did, in fact, wiretap it, whatever, accidentally collect information on President Trump during the transition of power.
But when you saw both politicians step up there leading the Senate committee yesterday, Harris, you got the impression, and as they said, we're not going to stop till we get this done, that they were together on this. And they're obviously from opposing parties. And they have devoted 7 individuals to this investigation.
We hope so. We hope that some of their actually not incidental but on purpose information gathering includes an Ellis Farkas testimony. And I think you're talking about an interview that just happened because
morning show, Mika. Unfortunately,
so I was
Mika
watching
failed
as well,
to follow up
and I don't know if you caught in that interview, she also said that at times she wasn't always comfortable with the level of information gathering that they were doing by the Obama administration and looking at Trump's campaign. That deserves a second look. So as we talk about the people who are going to work together to get to the answers, that's a bigger part of this investigation, goes to intent and the flavor of that information gathering. I think that's
that she was not at the very top levels of state, let alone
we know that the list of unmasking is big, right?
And growing.
We know that list is big. We know that there were people who are on there who were necessarily more political than they were investigative. But I want to get to one thing if we can, because I think this will feed into it. So when you look at the bigger issue, it's something that Megyn has talked about a lot, and that's that we ought to be focused on whether or not Russia has us in their sights, right? No matter which party. And one of the witnesses today says and intends to tell the Intelligence Committee that Marco Rubio once suffered from Russian efforts as well. But this is bipartisan.
As Eric mentioned at the top, there's so much to get to, so we want to stay on track here. As Mercedes just mentioned, in the House, the Russia investigation is essentially on hold following days of turmoil surrounding embattled House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes. The committee's ranking Democrat, Adam Schiff, plans to meet with Nunes sometime today. He has previously called on the California Republican to step aside from the Russia investigation, but says he hopes today's meeting can essentially right the ship.
This has been, I think, very tough on all of us. This is someone I worked well with for many years, but I can't overlook if the chairman of our committee is going to freelance in this way. We got a meeting tomorrow, and I hope that we can somehow get back on track. But the chairman is going to have to find a way to lift this cloud. Otherwise, we're going to need someone else to preside over this. I think we really do need someone else to preside over this if we're going to do this credibly.
Meantime, a second Republican congressman following North Carolina's Walter Jones now says he thinks the House investigation has become too politicized. Here's Pennsylvania's Charlie Dent.
I'm not optimistic, just given the tone and the tenor and the various shots being taken by both sides. It sounds to me like they're kind of getting into a stalemate position, a bit paralyzed. The Senate is moving on a better trajectory, and I think we're going to have to rely on the Senate.
All right, so should the Senate lead this thing? Has it become too politicized in the House?
Wow. So Schiff says Nunes should step down because of some things Nunes has done. Don't forget, Adam Schiff is the guy who went on the television and also said that he had not circumstantial evidence. He had direct evidence of a collusion between the Trump administration and the Russians, and then he has since walked it back. So if you want someone to step down, maybe both of them could step down. I don't think either one should. I think Devin Nunes can handle this. But if you're going to do that, take them both down, and then you end up having another Republican, GOPer, who's going to head the committee. So let's be fair. And if you want to call for someone to step down, I think here's what I think. I think you're going to have 3 separate investigations, 3 separate findings, and let's just see what we have. I want to see the evidence.
And I think we need to clarify the situation as well, because there was a source who contacted Chairman Nunes directly, asked him, in a guarantee of confidentiality to have this to give this information, this classified information. So that is why Congressman Nunes decided to move forward, speak with the source, and gather this information. However, as Eric, you mentioned, Congressman Schiff went out and started talking about the circumstantial evidence, direct evidence. We don't even have the findings. We're under investigation right now. So I think that the Democrats jumped the gun. I think that Nunes tried to handle the situation with the source, but it got complicated, and that's when it got overheated coverage.
Do you think, Mercedes, it's fair, because I've been asking this all week, that Nunes should have telegraphed out and thought, you know, if I do this on White House grounds and I don't have a good reason, Democrats are going to come after me because we have a target on our backs. I'm talking specifically from the point of view of Republicans, that perhaps that was something that he...
You know, I think he was focused on trying to get the information he needed for this investigation. I think that was his top priority. Unfortunately, you know, the media is going to jump on it and basically say, well, he's a Trump supporter. And, you know, I don't think he necessarily handled it absolutely correctly. But when you're dealing with a source who says, I need to guarantee this confidentiality, you are not going to expose me. Some of these sources come out and they go in public to the congressional hearing, but he had to obtain that information, which was actually very disturbing because it, again, is going after these American citizens in terms of this, in engaging in their conversations.
Megan, can the House get this back on track?
I certainly don't know, but I know what doesn't help. Nunes today in the Weekly Standard said the FBI is not cooperating in his specific request for more information. And I've been saying all last week and all this week that the American public is more than entitled to more transparency on this issue. I don't understand why the FBI isn't helping him get what information that he has seen. And again, to bring, it's just so confusing. Trying to explain this, by the way, to an average person who is not a Politico is borderline impossible. And every day it gets more complicated and more muddled. And I just don't understand why the FBI isn't helping him.
And I think Adam Halsey broke something the other night, and he said that there's some indication that the FBI may have somehow had some contact with this Christopher Steele, the dossier guy from England. But if the FBI paid this guy to put this dossier together, and this Christopher Steele worked for opposition research on Trump, there's some really kind of interesting...
is the allegation that the FBI paid him?
Well, actually, it would be unfortunate if they used opposition research. But here's the point.
Remember, they called Comey back to the committee. Nunes called Comey back, and he didn't show up. And that was supposed to happen Monday. Right. So a lot of information may still shed some light on what's going on between the FBI.
We've got to leave it there. A tweet from President Trump getting lots of reaction today. The president vowing to fight Democrats and the House Freedom Caucus when it comes to his agenda. Is he just hurting himself or being the fighter so many of his supporters want? And Vice President Pence and his wife under fire for having a solid marriage based on conservative values. Liberal haters gonna hate, and it's a whole lot of hate. And after the show, you can join our live chat by clicking the Overtime tab at foxnews.com/outnumbered or go to Facebook.
Fox News alert. President Trump is taking another swipe at the House Freedom Caucus. In a tweet, the president previously accused the group of helping save Obamacare after members failed to come together behind the GOP replacement bill. The president, though, this morning suggested the House's conservative wing could be an ongoing problem for the party. Here's the tweet. The Freedom Caucus will hurt the entire Republican agenda if they don't get on the team and fast. We must fight them and Dems in 2018. Michigan Congressman and Freedom Caucus member Justin Amash tweeted back at the president, "It didn't take long for the swamp to drain Donald Trump. No shame, Mr. President. Almost everyone succumbs to the D.C. establishment." And just moments ago, Speaker Paul Ryan gave his take. Watch.
I understand the president's frustration. I share frustration. About 90% of our conference is for this bill to repeal and replace Obamacare, and about 10% are not. And that's not enough to pass a bill. We're close. What I am encouraging our members to do is keep talking with each other until we can get the consensus to pass this bill. But it's very understandable that the president is frustrated that we haven't gotten to where we need to go, because this is something we all said we would do. And so he is just expressing his frustration.
All right, so the back and forth, Mercedes, is that you need the Freedom Caucus because they hold kind of in their hands the conservative values that were promised throughout people in America who voted for Republicans. And then the other side is you're in the way.
Well, I think the president needs a Freedom Caucus more than he needs the Democrats on this issue of Obamacare, because obviously the Democrats are going to want to make sure they preserve President Obama's legacy. And when it comes to these Freedom Caucus members, you're seeing a bit of a divide, because you saw Congressman Poe from Texas leaving the Freedom Caucus saying this is the time we need to govern, we need to come together.
Can't be the party you know.
Exactly. And so I understand President Trump's frustration. The reason being is that he has met with the Freedom Caucus time and time again, trying to get them there. And the Freedom Caucus is saying, look, one of the bigger issues that we have, they have several, is the fact that we have to be able to lower premiums, and this bill doesn't do it. So if they can get to that point of agreement, I think you'll see more of these Freedom Caucus members moving in this direction.
So, Eric, there is this promise that they're going to take another huge bite at the apple, as Mercedes is alluding to. But when they go at this again, I mean, is it helpful for you to cause basically a war within your own party to get there?
You mean the healthcare apple?
Yeah.
You can't.
Well, really, any apple, because they're going to have to come together on these issues.
I was here on this couch the day that bill came off. The Ryan and the leadership delivered the bill.
You can call them establishment. I don't think they're offended by that.
So they delivered this bill, and Megan and I both said this thing is dead on arrival because of the things that we were looking for wasn't in the bill. The Freedom Caucus saved Donald Trump's 2020 re-election bid by voting down this health care bill. It was bad. Premiums were going to go up for middle class and lower income people going into midterm elections and going into 2019 right before 2020. They don't start to turn down until after 2020. It was the best thing that happened to Donald Trump.
So why doesn't the president see it that way, though?
Here's what he's looking at. He's looking at the next one. I don't think this has to do with the next bite at the healthcare apple. It's about tax reform.
Okay, thank you. So where does this leave the president with tax reform if he's vowing to fight the conservative arm of his party?
He still needs them.
But
and
Eric,
I think they should get on board, because taxes, after all, there's not going to be a bifurcation of
so
it helps the rich and hurts the poor. So you think they should get on board? Not he should change, but they should change. Actually, I think the Freedom Caucus will be more in favor of this tax reform than the moderates in the House now.
Megan, I want to ask you this. Sure. If you tell people within your own group, your own party, that you're against them if they're not with you, what does that mean when you talk about governing and you need everybody at the table?
Listen, throughout my entire career, I never like this. I never like party infighting. I don't like the cannibalizing of different kinds of conservatives and Republicans within the party. Eric and I were in agreement on the bill. I was very unhappy with what Paul Ryan set out in front of everyone. I also was disappointed that the Freedom Caucus wouldn't at least have hedged and come and try have met in the middle, just because this was such a disaster. Some of them did, and I can't completely place blame here. We collectively have to come together as a party. I don't like that the president's doing this. The difference between Republicans and Democrats just blindly follow cult leaders. They don't think for themselves. They go in one mass. We have different factions within the party, and it is vitally important, now that we have all forms of power, House, Senate, and presidency, that we work together. And I didn't like this tweet, and I don't like Justin Amash's tweet.
You know, one of the questions at the news conference was put by John Roberts yesterday, and it was, are you going to, John Boehner, former Speaker of the House, your way through this in terms of siding with Democrats before you go with those conservatives in your own party? I want to give you the last word.
Oh, I was thinking that could mean something else, but I won't share that. I'll share that in a commercial break. I think Mercedes knows where I'm going with that. Look, tax reform is the next big priority on the president's agenda, and I will ask the question again: how can the president expect to move forward and have success with that without the Freedom Caucus?
Because tax reform will help every American. Will help upper income, middle income, and lower income. There's no debate on that one. That one is one they can wrap their minds and get together on.
But the president said health care could too.
No, it could, but not with the bill they presented.
There's more agreement on tax reform. I think the border adjustment tax will be the biggest issue. If they can get over that divide, we'll see if they could save tax reform.
All right, we'll move on. A new report says the FBI Director James Comey wanted to write an op-ed about Russian interference in the U.S. election months before Americans went to the polls, but the Obama administration blocked him. Why? And what may have happened if he had actually written that? Isn't that kind of political? I don't know. Anyway, Hillary Clinton is returning to Washington, D.C. tomorrow to talk at Georgetown University. It's all part of what some people are calling a comeback tour. Whether she's getting ready to run again in 2020 or, who knows. If it's time to let some fresh faces lead the Democratic Party, stay with us.
FBI Director James Comey reportedly wanted to write an op-ed as early as last summer about Russian interference in the U.S. election. Newsweek is reporting that Comey presented the idea to a group in the White House's Situation Room sometime between June and July. But the top-ranking Obama administration official in that meeting reportedly wanted a coordinated message backed by multiple agencies and blocked him from writing the op-ed. Comey got a lot of criticism after he sent a letter to Congress just before Election Day, alerting them that the Bureau was reviewing more emails that could have been relevant to the probe into Hillary Clinton's private server. Meantime, listen to what he said last night at an intel and security dinner near D.C.
The last year, it's been almost a year now, has been both difficult and easier than you might think. And I'll tell you, I've never been prouder of the FBI. What makes it easy is we're not on anybody's side, ever.
All right, Mercedes, I'm going to start with you. It's no secret I don't like James Comey. I thought he should have stepped down and or been fired before president. I've said it on television multiple times, no secret. He continues to put America in a position where we lack confidence in our intelligence agencies, and I don't understand why he would think writing an op-ed in any context in the media could possibly be an effective way to communicate with the American public.
It absolutely makes no sense that an FBI director would want to write an op-ed piece. I mean, it is an opinion piece in a magazine. It absolutely makes no sense. I find that with FBI Director Comey, he's like a political chameleon. He wants to be impartial, but then he tries to stir up controversy constantly. We saw this with Hillary Clinton and the email scandal when he came out basically almost indicting her and then eventually saying we're not going to prosecute. It's always these mixed political messages. I think FBI Director Comey has had his day. He loves to be in the middle of the storm, but I think it's never been helpful for the FBI, for the intelligence community.
So one of my journalism classes in college was on ethics in the justice system. And my professor used to say, make me thirsty for your case with your justice. You don't need to hold news conferences. I just wanted to say that out loud.
There you go.
We're right up eds, I guess. We're right up eds.
So over the last couple of years,
frustrated. I got to think about that one.
James Comey, he's a household name. Why is James Comey, the 100%. FBI director, a household name? He shouldn't be.
Wait, so to that point, why is his name constantly in headlines? Why is he, if he's impartial?
Because he loves it.
Sandra, you're right. He does love it. What happened to the days of the spy agencies being really secretive and no one knows what they're up to and who they're investigating? Yeah, but I hate this idea of the NSA director's name being everywhere and he's talking and the CIA director's name is out there. Our spy agencies, I have the utmost respect for our intel department. They are the best and the baddest on the planet. Except when the heads, the figureheads of these groups go out there and they want to be on TV and write op-eds.
Come on, but wait, don't take away from the fact that he is highly respected.
James Comey?
I think he's lost credibility.
There's three people on this couch.
I'm not passing judgment, but we have had many people sitting in your spot, Eric Bolling, who are willing to say, I know him on a personal level, I've known him for many years, he is completely capable of being impartial at the head of the FBI.
He gives the American public a reason to lack confidence in our national security. And this issue is a very serious one, by the way, about possible hypothetical Russian interference in our election. And the fact that he thought, as you pointed out, writing an opinion piece is somehow, I would have lost my mind, as would have Eric, on television had he done that. And it belittles the seriousness of the issue. And again, I don't understand, other than I completely agree with Eric that he's doing a total disservice to the men and women who do so much.
So my professor was right. He's thirsty.
Eric Bolling wants to fire back at me.
One thing. When James Comey, when he was at his best, he came out and said, we have investigations in all 50 states of ISIS threats. We have 1,000 open. Do that. That's great. That's fantastic. That makes everyone aware that ISIS is a threat and an imminent threat. But to start playing politics, and it is politics, that's when he loses it for
Just
a lot
make
of
your
us.
case.
Yeah.
James
Why is he
Comey.
doing interviews? Why are you doing speeches near D.C.? I mean, I'm sorry, but we have all these investigations going on. You're not helping Chairman Nunes. Why are you out doing speeches and talks or playing on TV right now?
All right. Well,
I can't
I got
stand
you
it.
guys all riled up. All right. Well, the so-called comeback tour continues. We're talking about Hillary Clinton. Tomorrow, she'll speak at Georgetown University after giving what's being called her most political speech since her election loss earlier this week. Clinton slamming the Trump administration without mentioning the president by name, saying that women's representation in Washington is, quote, the lowest it's been in a generation, and blasting Republican efforts to replace Obamacare as a, quote, disastrous bill. Then she said this.
We will need to fight back twice as hard, not for the sake of politics, but because these are bad policies that will hurt people and take our country in the wrong direction. I think about the outpouring of activism we're seeing, despite all the noise and the nonsense. 4 words keep coming back to me: resist, insist, persist, enlist. I don't think our country has ever been better positioned to take on the challenges of the future. Where some see a dark vision of carnage, I see a light shining on creativity and opportunity. We need to resist bias and bullying. We need to resist hate and fear. And I'll be right there with you every step of the way.
To resist that stage backdrop. It was like making me sick, all the like bubble looking thing. All right, Eric Bolling, is this the beginning of the comeback tour of Hillary Clinton?
No, I don't think so. First of all, I think that was a much more relaxed Hillary Clinton. I much prefer that one to the candidate Clinton. But here's the deal. Since she lost the election, the Clinton Foundation donations have dropped by 37%, a clear third of their donations. So she needs to get back out there and be the face for Democrats or liberalism. But she's got a window, though, because as soon as President Obama decides it's his turn, then he's going to hold the stage for the voice of the liberal left.
The Democrats don't need her as the face because obviously that strategy completely failed. And you've seen Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and President Obama be the faces of the party. But I think for Hillary Clinton, it's not the comeback tour. It's the go back to your house tour. I mean, seriously, it was a campaign rehash speech that she gave at Georgetown. You know, at that point, when you lose an election, it's time to move, get off the stage, and let the fresh faces of the Democratic Party.
As long as she's there and Nancy Pelosi is there and Elizabeth Warren's there, I mean, what opportunity, to Mercedes' point, is there for the emergence of the new Democratic Party?
There isn't, but I just think Hillary Clinton is so completely power hungry and attention hungry that, I mean, it really hasn't been that long since she lost the election and spent, what, $1 billion trying to get elected and couldn't do it. I don't care how many leather jackets she buys. I don't care how many weird backdrops she has. I'm sick of seeing her, and apparently I'm going to be subjected to Hillary Clinton for the rest of my life, no matter what happens, and then probably Chelsea Clinton. And it's deeply unfair to Democrats, but as long as you want to keep putting the Clintons out, it's great for me because we'll just keep winning elections.
But I mean, is it okay that she was up on that stage and basically urging her supporters to resist the current president?
Well, she can do whatever she wants. I mean, she didn't get to become president, so I mean, she can make whatever argument she wants. I want to talk a little bit about some of the positive things, though, that you may have seen at CPAC, because Mercedes, I want to yield my time to you and talk about cultivating that young talent and what Democrats should be watching Republicans do right now.
Well, I think clearly for conservatives, there's such energy around this Trump presidency. They have this sense, especially at the grassroots level, of getting involved and being able to push forward this pro-economic job creation agenda. And I think for conservatives, it's very much of an opportunity. But, Harris, Republicans have to govern right. Conservatives have to govern. We cannot be the party of no. We have to be the party of solutions. We have to ensure that since we have the majority, since we have the presidency, that there are these legislative victories, and that is what the American people are looking towards.
All right.
I agree with that.
Yeah. All right. Hillary Clinton making a comeback.
No, she's not. Stop. Stop.
Okay. New developments in the ongoing battle between sanctuary cities and the federal government. One city suing the Trump administration over its latest move to block federal funds. As a sheriff says, any elected officials who don't comply with federal law should get arrest warrants. We'll debate who is right and what's the best way to deal with the enormous problem of illegal immigration.
Happy Friday Eve. Glad you're watching. New fallout from Attorney General Jeff Sessions' announcement this week that sanctuary cities which don't comply with federal immigration laws will not be able to get Justice Department grants. Seattle Mayor Ed Murray is suing the Trump administration, claiming Sessions' move is unconstitutional. Also, a number of mayors and police chiefs met with Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly yesterday to talk about the issue. They insist they're doing nothing wrong.
It is absolutely untrue that our priority is anything other than keeping our communities safe.
We don't have the resources to be the immigration police, nor would that benefit for jurisdictions that have a large immigrant population, nor would that be prudent, in my view.
We cooperate with ICE in that we make sure that they're aware of who's in our custody and aware of the time of release. But we do not change the way that we prosecute based on immigration status.
Our first priority is to get the bad guys off of the street. But cutting Homeland Security grants, cutting cops funding, taking resources away, and then threatening to take other resources away actually makes the problem worse, not better.
There's more. A Massachusetts sheriff is speaking out against local lawmakers who don't comply with federal immigration laws. Watch.
If these sanctuary cities are going to harbor and conceal criminally illegal aliens from ICE, which is in direct violation of Title 8 of the U.S. Code, federal arrest warrants should be issued for their elected officials.
Eric Bowling, sanctuary cities. There are upwards of 300 of them that we know of.
Right. Okay, so here's the thing. A.G. Sessions, who's on O'Reilly tonight, decided that there's $27 billion that go to these sanctuary cities that may be earmarked to be pulled back from law enforcement in the cities. A very harsh thing to do, but it's not unprecedented. President Obama is the one who came up with the idea first, and he said, if you're going to harbor illegals as a sanctuary city, we're going to pull back education money. I mean, that's even, I would say, even harsher. Here's the thing, though. I think everyone needs to take a step back and chill a little bit. I have, honestly, a common sense solution to the immigration issue. And I've said this before. DMVs, there's probably 50 or 60 of them in each state, maybe 10 or 15 in each state. Create little harbors, make those embassies where if you're illegal, you can walk into this area, the DMV or whatever you call it, and you're not going to get arrested or deported, but you're going to get a documentation of who you are. It's not a path to citizenship, it's a path to legality. You'll pay your taxes, you'll be able to stay here, and eventually you can go back to the end of the line to become a citizen when we work through the whole citizen. It's a way to increase immigration.
That would be quite a boost in hiring for the DMVs, because their lines are pretty long already.
That is one of the drawbacks to it, right? But a good one.
All right, so this part of the story is kind of interesting, right? Massachusetts state representative was warning people in her area via Facebook to watch out for ICE raids. And here's the quote.
This is alarming.
ICE raid in Brockton on 3/28 and 29th. If you are undocumented, don't go out on the street. If there is a knock on the door of your house and you don't know who it is, don't open the door. I ask you to be careful.
And since that's been revealed, she is standing by that, by the way. No remorse being seen from her. But what about the city of Chicago? We both originate from there, Eric Bowling. I mean, it's unbelievable. The mayor's response to Jeff Sessions earlier this week, Rahm Emanuel, we are a welcoming city. I mean, he just doesn't even just stop and look at what's going on.
That's why I think both sides are pushing. I think the administration is pushing, hardcore, hard immigration stance. The other side, the sanctuary mayor, saying, no, we're going to go the opposite and refute all of these aggressive tactics. There's somewhere in the middle that they need to find a common place.
Eric, what I find fascinating is that you have these liberal mayors who are really pushing the 10th Amendment, states' rights. These are individuals who always want want federal government involvement. Yet when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to ICE, they don't want them in their business. They want to be the ones to decide. But these people are breaking the law. As we know, that in these 300 sanctuary cities, over 17,000 of these detentions were absolutely ignored. And you're talking that many of these individuals who were criminals were released. And then you have over 1,000 of those individuals in 1 year alone who recommitted crimes who were illegal
Let me just step in 1 second. If they're here illegally, they've already committed a crime.
People get so mad at you when you say that,
They
Harris.
get mad, but they're already checked the box of criminal. They get, you're right, they do.
No, I think it's irrational that people get mad at you for speaking the truth on that, because it is true, and I 100% echo that. I don't understand all the anger about simply enforcing laws that are already in place. Then why are these laws there? Why do these laws exist then? Number one. And number two, when people like Bill de Blasio come out and say, New York is a sanctuary city, XYZ, I pay taxes in this city. I am more of a citizen than people who are here illegally. I hope that's not a controversial thing to say. And I just don't understand how we've gotten to the point where people who have committed crimes apparently have a different kind of set of standards and rules in this country than people who haven't.
Right, and that's why immigration reform, something that has not been able to be tackled in the past decades, it has to be a priority, because we need to figure out how we get rid of this burdensome immigration process. And you want to make sure that, you know what, those illegal immigrants, it's about the legal immigrants. We want to make sure that they're first in line, that they can get into this country legally because they followed the law.
Interesting. All right, let's move on. That was spicy. Vice President Mike Pence would do anything for love. I love this story. Now liberals, though, say they just can't stand it. They're blasting his conservative 31-year marriage. Double standard, anybody? We'll talk about it.
Mike and Karen Pence are in liberal crosshairs because of their conservative values they embrace in their marriage. The Washington Post reporting the vice president won't have dinner alone with other women or attend events where alcohol is served unless his wife is by his side. The left taking to social media to bash the couple. One person posting, "This whole Pence weirdness screams to me of a husband and wife who both know all too well that the husband's judgment can't be trusted." Mother Jones editor-in-chief Clara Jeffrey went on a Twitter rant of her own, starting with this: "If Pence won't eat dinner alone with any woman but his wife, that means he won't hire women in key spots." Oh, that's so dumb. But contrary to the assessment, the vice president's two top national security advisors are both women. Meantime, some think the criticism has gone too far. One user writing, quote, "For God's sake, liberals now attacking Vice President Mike Pence for being faithful to his wife." Mercedes, that was my first reaction too. My second reaction was there'd be a lot more people that could probably be president of the United States if they had had a marriage like Mike and Karen Pence.
Absolutely. And I think you know this, having your father in politics as well. Just being able to have that strong support. And I've seen Vice President Pence and Mrs. Pence together. I mean, there is this source of strength that comes from that woman. She is a rock. And I think that he really values her opinion and wants her to be part of this journey that they're both taking together. And then to these key posts that he wouldn't hire women, if you look at Vice President Pence's staff, you're talking about his deputy chief of staff. He has over 5 or 6 women, and that staff is not very big, in key posts.
Yeah, because
it is absolutely ridiculous.
Since when is it a prerequisite to hire a woman that you have to have dinner with her? I'm just trying to figure out the rationalization there by whoever said that. Look, obviously this is a wonderful example to be set coming directly from our White House.
I think for conservatives, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If he had been seen out in public with a woman having dinner, there would be some nefarious article written probably by Mother Jones saying, Mike Pence out, what's he's doing. But now the fact that he's come out and said that his conservative values that he obviously integrates into his marriage as well, the fact that he doesn't want to go out and drink with women, which, by the way, I'm not married, but I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I don't understand what the controversy is, but there's really no way to win. I think if Tim Kaine had come out and said this is the rules my wife and I abide by, I think the liberal media would be applauding it.
Wow. You know, these are not just conservative values. I mean, members of my family who are Democrats, these are Christian Judeo values. These are Hindu values. These are a lot of values that have to do with respecting one another and not putting each other in position where they have to parse your behavior, because that's destructive to a marriage. You know, if we spend as much time trying to figure out how people come apart as we do stay together, maybe we'd have less divorce in this country.
What a great man. In couple, I've met Mike Pence several times. I've never met Mrs. Pence, but he talks the talk and walks the walk. I mean, that's what he is. He's all about conservative family values. You got to love what he's all about. Great guy. I've been married 19 years. I'm going on my 20th year. Love my beautiful wife. Look, for him, I won't go to a cocktail party where there's alcohol without my wife. My wife is very open. She's like, you go ahead, do your thing.
Do you have a red antique phone in your office that only she has the number to?
No.
Because if my husband's listening, take note, because
symbolic now.
I do have.
Do you have one?
Symbolic because they have cell phones now.
Look,
right?
Matt and I are obviously involved in politics, and I have to say it's a family affair for us.
You have 5 children, by the way.
Yes, and we bring them to CPAC as well, which is the conservative event that we have once a year. But I do find that even in our relationship, just being together, being able to be a sounding board, being able to talk through political issues of the day, I think is incredibly helpful. And I think that's why for Vice President Pence, Mrs. Pence is such a key component of just shaping his vice presidency. And I mean, she's taken the lead, for example, in being with the veterans and the military spouses. I mean, let's honor marriage. They are such a wonderful example of what we should see in marriages, which is actually a loving relationship.
But I think if you were to come and try to see the other side of this, is if in any way he was being prevented from hiring or working with women and they were adversely affected by this. But Mercedes, you pointed out so eloquently, that is not the case. And he has many women working for him and on his staff.
But it is about victory in their marriage, too. Because, I mean, if you read deeper, when he had unsuccessful bids for Congress, he went on that 250-mile bike tour around his district, and she rode with him. They have twin treadmills in their house. I mean, they are each other's best friends. What's wrong?
Well, Schlepp and I do not have that.
That works for them. They're not saying that we
But I want
have
to give you an example of some of these nasty tweets that people have been getting. It says, Christians for Trump, blind as bats, and just plain bat blank crazy. So people are being very harsh on this.
Now it's now they're attaching this to Trump, too? Are they reaching as low as they possibly can reach to just take a shot at conservatives?
But it really, I mean, the saddest part about it is it's a celebration of 31 years of marriage. In politics, by the way, which I know better, it's not an easy industry to have a successful marriage, and that's why so many marriages break up. And then why the media can't celebrate what has worked for them, I don't understand. It would be interesting to me if there was a liberal couple talking about their open marriage or something, sort of crazy and counterculture in that way, if there would be a different kind of reaction. It's this complete and utter rejection of conservative values. And I'm telling you, if Tim Kaine had come out and said, this is what my wife and I have, I don't think the media would be reacting
the same way. And did they prefer what Bill Clinton was all about?
Exactly. I mean,
well, no one was criticizing President Obama, Mrs. Obama. They always thought that marriage to be, a healthy marriage. And again, you want to have that strong partner with you. I mean, the key to happiness is when you find that wonderful partner. It's the most important choice you'll make in your life, Megan. Just heads up.
Okay. All right. Wow. My mom's putting you up to that.
Watching.
We're outnumbered in a minute.